first things first, what do you make of what we've seen there? So 10% tariff on Britain. It is 20% for the EU.
Look, it's deeply concerning for British businesses and workers right across the country in many sectors, but in particular in the British car manufacturing sector, which exports so much to the United States. I think there's a serious failure of the Starmer negotiating team. Keir Starmer is not a good negotiator. We've seen that in many other respects, like the Chagos deal, for example. He sacked the trade negotiator, Crawford Faulkner, who we had when we were in government, a highly respected individual, and he's lent upon Peter Mandelson, who frankly wouldn't know British interests if they slapped him in the face. This is a big failure. We've got to ensure now that Starmer gets back around the table and ultimately puts British interests first, because that is what Donald Trump is doing. He's putting the interests of the United States and American workers first. And I want to see Starmer do exactly the same.
Okay.
He shouldn't be pushed around by other countries, even if they're bigger players than us. So all options should remain on the table.
I've just had it in my ear that Trade Secretary or Business Secretary Jonathan Reynolds has released a statement. So I'll read this out, reading it for the first time now, and I'll get your reaction to it, Mr. Jenrick, if that's okay. He says, nobody wants a trade war, and our intention remains to secure a deal. But nothing is off the table, and the government will do everything necessary to defend the UK's national interest. I'll read that one more time. This is Jonathan Reynolds, Business Secretary, saying nobody wants a trade war and our intention remains to secure a deal, but nothing is off the table and the government will do everything necessary to defend the UK's national interest. Your views on that?
Well, look, Jonathan Reynolds has only in the last few days been to Washington and sat round the table with his opposite number. The Starmer government should have been in the room with the Trump administration long ago. Think of that visit that Starmer had, which was lauded by some parts of the press, where he sat in the Oval Office. What did that actually achieve? He offered a state visit to the United Kingdom, and then Donald Trump has gone and imposed tariffs. Sure, they're less than had we remained within the European Union, but they're still going to be very, very serious for British business, particularly the car manufacturing industry, which is already on its knees, thanks to the net zero zealotry of Ed Miliband and policies that are really, really harming jobs and livelihoods in places like Luton and Sunderland right now. So I want to see Starmer step up. I want to see him negotiating a trade arrangement that hives the UK out from these tariffs as quickly as possible, which is what he was promising just a few days ago.
Surely we should also now be seeing what Emmanuel Macron did when he came over under Theresa May, by the way, and then stood on the steps of Downing Street and said to every single French citizen, come back to the motherland, come back to France, we want your money, we want you over here, we want your wealth. He wasn't shy about doing that. Why doesn't Keir Starmer now stand up and say, OK, if you're a big business that's based in the European Union, get yourself to Britain. You can halve the amount of tariffs that you're paying there. This is the kind of stuff that he should be doing now.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to see him getting businesses to come and relocate here in the UK, trying to make the best of a bad situation and standing up for Britain. You know, don't be pushed around. Even if the United States is a bigger player than us, don't be pushed around. Put British interests first.
Once again, Keir Starmer has proven he is out of his depth when it comes to leading Britain through turbulent times. The failure of his Labour government's negotiating team to secure a deal and prevent the imposition of new tariffs is not just a diplomatic blunder. It's a slap in the face to British businesses and to the millions of people already struggling with a cost of living crisis. Conservative MP Robert Jenrick was absolutely right to call it a serious failure of the Starmer negotiating team, because that's exactly what it is: an embarrassing, avoidable, and entirely predictable mess. Compared to previous administrations, criticized though they may have been, at least they understood the basic principle of international negotiation. Never walk into a deal without a backup plan. Starmer, ever the legal technocrat, approached these talks with the same naive belief that simply showing up and saying we're not Boris Johnson would be enough to win over the other side. It wasn't, and now we're left holding the bill, literally, in the form of fresh tariffs and increased costs. The much-hyped new era of cooperation Starmer once promised now sounds like a cruel joke. He pledged that under Labour, Britain would get back to the grown-up table, but what we're witnessing instead is a government being humiliated on the world stage. They were led, not leading. They were reactive, not strategic. And the consequences are being felt from our ports to our supermarts. A failure in negotiations is never just a single event. It reflects an entire government's mindset, its approach, and ultimately, its inadequacy. The fact that this happened under a man who promised competence and seriousness only adds insult to injury. Starmer had every opportunity to prove he was a different kind of leader. What he delivered instead is more of the same bland, indecisive, risk-averse politics that Britain has grown tired of.
But ultimately, Julia, I think you've highlighted perhaps a systematic flaw here, that if people choose to live in the UK, if they want to use healthcare abroad, and this S2 form that they have to fill in to do that, it does allow us to have treatment abroad, but we've got perfectly adequate maternity services in the UK. So if they want to go to Poland and have their children, well, let them pay for it in Poland themselves, not bill the UK taxpayer.
Well, that's the thing, because I looked at the numbers and it works out as £803 cost per woman. I'm wondering, would it be more expensive if they were treated here in the UK? That's what I was wondering. Are we saving money by them going home to do that? But the key thing here is actually, this system is set up for Brits to get necessary, urgent healthcare abroad, which we then pay for, because you're our citizen, and it's just a reciprocal arrangement. It wasn't set up for people to just go pick and choose where they had their baby.
Well, no, and that's the part of the problem here, is that basically they're opting out of NHS services to have the treatment, but then charging back to the NHS for that treatment. And the fact that we're talking pregnant women here, Julia, this is not kind of some emergency thing that's happened, because you can't fly over a certain period when you actually are pregnant. So you must have made a pre-planned to do this in terms of getting the pregnancy.
And have somewhere to stay in the country where you supposedly don't live.
Indeed, and I'm probably not talking huge amounts of money, but it just goes to add to the fact that all these small amounts of money, when they all get added up, it starts adding up to a lot. And I do know as well, Julia, that we still have issues in the UK where women come to our country.
Well, I was just going to ask you about that. We've got a huge issue, and again, we're often told by the great, the good, oh no, it's on a tiny scale. But actually, most hospitals simply don't ask. I mean, you go to a hospital in London, half of the people don't speak English as a first language. I mentioned this a few weeks ago. I was in a hospital for some testing or something, and there was virtually no one else in the corridor I was waiting. There must have been about 30, 40 people who were speaking English.
Jamie Jenkins, former head of health analysis at the Office for National Statistics, ONS, has sparked fresh debate by calling out a quietly festering issue that many in government and media circles have long tiptoed around: foreign nationals exploiting the UK's National Health Service. Specifically, Jenkins takes aim at European women residing in the UK who choose to return to their home countries to give birth, only to then claim the costs of those births on the NHS. His message is blunt, and one that will resonate with many British taxpayers: don't bill the UK taxpayer. And he's right. This isn't just a matter of bureaucratic oversight or cross-border paperwork. It's a systemic failure, one that reveals how unprepared the UK remains in enforcing accountability and ensuring that public services are not taken advantage of. Let's be clear. The NHS was built on the noble principle of providing healthcare to those who need it, free at the point of use. But it was never designed to become an open tab for people who cherry-pick its benefits while sidestepping the responsibilities that come with living in the UK. What Jenkins is highlighting here is not xenophobia or petty nationalism. It's fiscal reality. When taxpayers fund a service as expensive and critical as the NHS, there is a moral contract in place. The money you contribute goes towards the care you receive.